Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the thriller mystery films from 2025, titled Drop. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens with a woman named Violet injured and bloodied on the ground. She tries to stagger away, but then, her husband, Blake, arrives and brutally kicks her. He then points his gun at her, but soon gives her the gun and urges that she shoot him.
Come on! Come on, shoot me!
Fast forward a few years, Violet is doing much better in life, and now works as a therapist helping women scarred by domestic abuse. This morning, she gets a text from a man named Henry, who asks her out. Just then, a man claiming to be from the electric company arrives to read the meter. Violet doesn't think much of it and allows him to enter. The scene then shifts to evening, where we see Violet playing with her son Toby. Soon, her sister, Jen, arrives at the house to babysit Toby, while Violet goes on her date. After dressing up beautifully, Violet reminds her sister that Toby must sleep by 8 p.m. sharp, and that she'll be watching them through the CCTV. She soon arrives at a fine dining restaurant, which is located on a very high floor. While in the elevator, Henry texts, saying he'll be 10 minutes late and telling her to wait at the bar. Violet thus heads to the bar and meets a friendly bartender named Kara. She orders a drink and admits she's nervous, as it's her first date with this guy. Moments later, she's unexpectedly approached by an old man named Richard, who mistakes her for his date, Diane. Violet clarifies that she's not her, and the embarrassed man apologizes, explaining that he's waiting for a blind date. After this, the two toast to their successful dates, when they're suddenly interrupted by a man named Phil. He tries to flirt with Violet, but Kara quickly reveals that she's here for a date, chasing him away. She then apologizes to Violet, explaining it's the new piano guy who flirts with everyone. At this moment, Richard's blind date, Diane, shows up, and the two head to their table. Violet then texts her sister when, out of nowhere, a random meme pops up from the Digidrop, which is an app similar to AirDrop. She looks around and notices several people on their phones, wondering who could have sent it. Just then, Henry finally arrives and compliments Violet on how beautiful she looks. The two head to their reserved table, where they have a breathtaking view of the city. Henry, a photographer, apologizes for bringing his bag as he couldn't risk leaving his camera in the car. He then pulls out a small hockey puck, saying it's a gift for Toby, and Violet is genuinely touched by the gesture and thanks him. At this moment, a waiter named Matt arrives, and takes their drink orders before stepping away. Suddenly, Violet gets another meme via Digidrop, this time urging her not to ignore the message. She shows it to Henry, and they both scan the room to see who it could be. They soon spot a group of prom kids, and assume it's just them messing around. Not long after, Violet receives another message from the dropper, who asks her to check her home security cameras. She obliges and sees Toby and Jen in the bedroom, but her blood runs cold when she spots a masked man in the living room, staring into the camera, holding a gun. Henry asks her what's wrong, but she receives another message, asking her to keep her mouth shut. Shaken, Violet pretends to use the bathroom, and tries to call 911, but another message appears, saying her phone has been cloned and they can see everything. If she leaves the restaurant, her son will die. When Violet arrives at the washroom, she approaches a group of girls and asks for their help, but another message urges her not to ask for help from anyone. The poor woman then borrows eyeliner from one of the girls, and tries to write help on her palm, but unfortunately, the girls don't understand her and simply exit the bathroom. A frantic Violet then inspects the bathroom, and soon spots a tapping device hidden under the sink, leaving her shocked. Next, Violet returns to her table, where Henry notices her distress. But she quickly clarifies, saying she's just anxious because she and Toby have never been apart, especially after his dad died. Just then, her eyes lock onto a tapping device on the lamp at the table, and a chill runs through her as she realizes the dropper is listening to their conversation. Violet then tells Henry that she's scared of heights, and suggests switching to another table. He agrees without hesitation, and calls over Matt to make the request. Soon, the waiter returns, saying he's managed to get them another table, but Violet receives another message from the dropper, warning her not to switch tables, or Toby will be dead in a minute. Panicked and with no choice, Violet suggests they return to their original table because they came specifically for the view. Both Henry and Matt are confused, but they agree to her request. Soon after, Matt arrives at their table, asking if they're ready to order, while Violet quietly asks the dropper what they want. The dropper then orders her to get the SD card from Henry's camera, and it is up to her how she does so. With her heart racing, she quickly removes her watch, and places it in her purse while Henry is distracted. After Matt leaves, Violet pretends to have lost her watch, swearing she had it on when he entered. She asks Henry to approach the hostess and check if she found it. He once again obliges and leaves, after which Violet quickly grabs his camera from the bag. Her pulse quickens as she finds several photos of the city mayor with shady individuals, along with financial statements revealing his corruption and fraud. Violet immediately yanks out the SD card and returns to her seat, just as Henry walks back. The man mentions that the hostess has no idea about her watch, right when the dropper orders her to go to the bathroom. She thus tells Henry she probably left her watch in the bathroom and excuses herself. Once inside, another message arrives, instructing her to smash the SD card and flush it. Violet, who is desperate to protect her kid, obliges and destroys the card. She then pleads with the dropper to get the man out of her house, but the latter coldly responds that her job isn't done yet, and asks her to check the towel dispenser. With no other choice, Violet opens the towel dispenser and finds a vial of liquid inside. To her shock, the dropper instructs her to slip it into Henry's drink and kill him, assuring her it will be painless and quick. Violet insists that she can't kill someone, but the dropper coldly responds that she can do it, as she has killed someone before as well. Shaken, Violet exits the washroom, her mind racing as she wonders who the dropper could be. She heads back to the table, where Henry is already preparing to leave, as he thinks she isn't interested in him. He says they can do this another time, and after paying the bill, he walks away. But in a desperate attempt to make him stay, Violet passionately kisses him. She then asks him to stay, and the excited guy also agrees. At this moment, they notice Diane angrily calling Richard a jerk before storming out of the restaurant. Next, Henry and Violet return to their seats, when the dropper urges her to finish the job. Matt arrives to take their order, just as Phil begins playing the piano. Here Violet quickly comes up with an idea, and says she wants to give the pianist a tip. She then takes out her lipstick and writes hostages, and her address on a $20 bill, before giving it to Matt to pass to Phil. Soon, Matt hands the money to Phil, while Violet turns to Henry and questions him about his job. We then learn that he's been working as the mayor's press photographer for 5 years. She digs deeper and asks if the mayor is a good guy, but Henry only gives a vague response without actually revealing anything. In the meantime, Phil begins grabbing the tip money and proceeds to leave. But he soon comes across the message left by Violet and visibly freezes in fear. Violet notices him trying to call someone, but the terrified man quickly returns to the piano and begins sipping his cocktail to calm his nerves. Just then, Matt arrives with their food, and Violet proceeds to eat her salad. And then she's shocked to find this. She immediately gets a text from the dropper, who says she screwed up. Violet apologizes, but it's already too late, as we see Phil collapsing on the floor after taking a spiked drink. A horrified Violet immediately checks her home cameras, and notices the masked man knocking out Jen, and then locking Toby in a room. The dropper then asks her to finish the job. In the meantime, Phil gets up, and heads toward the elevator by himself. But then, the dropper states that Phil won't make it out of the lobby alive. Panic rises inside her, but she forces a smile and pretends everything is normal. She suggests to Henry that they should lighten the mood with some tequila and heads to the bar. However, as Violet leaves in a rush, she drops her purse, and Henry notices her watch. At the bar, Violet orders 2 shots of tequila, and tries to slip the poison into one of them. But the dropper orders her to do it at the table. Upon returning to her seat, Henry hands Violet her watch, saying it had fallen from her purse earlier. He's upset, as she's constantly scanning the restaurant and appears uneasy. He urges her to be honest, saying he can help if something is wrong. At this moment, Violet is hit by a flashback, the night she tried to shoot Blake but couldn't do it. Little Toby witnessed everything and was crying, and Blake unexpectedly turned the gun toward Toby. In the present, Violet opens up about this traumatic incident, and tells Henry that she feels like a bad mother. It's because she stayed with her abusive husband even after Toby was born, and he ended up seeing things no child should ever witness. Feeling bad, Henry also shares that he was once in a similar situation, as the person he trusted the most turned out to be someone terrible. Many good people were hurt in the process, but he couldn't do anything to stop it. He gently tells Violet that her ex-husband didn't take her hope, because she's still here, just like he is. Upon hearing this, Violet smiles and tells him he's a good person. She then claims she forgot the limes, and asks him to go back to the bar. Henry agrees and leaves, and in that brief moment, Violet manages to spike his drink with a heavy heart. Soon, Henry returns with the limes and tries to drink the tequila, but Violet can't bring herself to kill him, so she deliberately spills wine on him, making him put down his glass. As Henry goes to clean himself, Violet gets a text saying, "That wasn't very smart." Moments later, Kara approaches Violet, and asks if everything is okay, noticing she's been acting distressed all night. She wonders if her date did something wrong, and offers to help with the situation. But Violet reveals it's not Henry, but something else. Kara then drops a shocking piece of information, and reveals how Richard has been staring at Violet all night, despite being on a date with another woman. Enraged, Violet approaches the old man with 2 shots of tequila, one of which is seemingly poisoned. She claims she feels bad that his date left and offers him the drink, but the creepy man suddenly calls her by her name and refuses the drink. Here a confused Violet points out that she hasn't told him her name before. Realizing his cover is blown, he asks her to sit down, and reveals that he is, indeed, the dropper. Next, Richard reveals that he's employed by the mayor, and tasked with the job of assassinating Henry, who is actually an FBI informant. He adds that Digidrop texts are untraceable, making it easier for him to give her the task. When Violet asks why they chose her, Richard reveals it was easier to frame her since she has already murdered someone before. Violet insists she didn't kill her late husband, but the old man doesn't believe her. However, a quick flashback shows that Blake had almost shot Toby, but hearing the police sirens, he chose to take his own life instead. Richard blames Violet for pulling her unnecessary stunt, and causing Phil to be murdered. He boastfully mentions that the footage of her spiking Henry's drink is recorded, making it impossible for her to win. Now, the only chance she has to save her kid is to kill Henry. At this moment, Henry walks in, so Violet introduces him to Richard, saying they're old friends. She also offers him a shot of tequila, which she has supposedly spiked. After Henry drinks it, she asks him to go back to their table and wait for her. Violet then urges Richard to have his man leave her house since the job is done, so the dropper instructs the masked man to leave immediately. Believing he has won, Richard excitedly digs into his dessert while chatting with Violet. But halfway through his meal, Violet suddenly drops a bombshell, revealing that she actually poisoned his dessert, not Henry's drink. Furious, the old man pulls a gun on her, but Henry unexpectedly jumps in front of Violet and takes the shot instead. Chaos erupts in the restaurant as people begin running in fear. Meanwhile, Richard chases Violet and is almost about to shoot her when Kara intervenes, causing him to shoot a glass wall instead. The enraged man violently stabs the bartender before turning his attention back to Violet. Soon, Richard points the gun toward Violet, just when she notices the cracked glass behind him. He also orders the masked man to go back to the house and kill Toby. And then this happens.
You missed.
The old man dies from the fall, while Violet clings desperately to a tablecloth that caught on something. Fortunately, an injured Henry comes to her rescue, and manages to pull her back inside the restaurant. After this, Violet checks her home camera and sees the masked man heading toward her son's room. She thus grabs Henry's car keys, and urges him to call the cops before running out of the restaurant. Violet races through traffic to get home, while Jen regains consciousness and searches for Toby. Meanwhile, the masked man manages to grab Toby and attempts to harm him, so Jen stabs him in the leg before pulling Toby away from the danger. The two lock themselves in a room, and barricade the door with furniture. Unfortunately, the masked man manages to break inside, and shoots Jen in the arm. He also shoots the bed multiple times to check on Toby, right when Violet arrives home, and the masked man hears her. He quickly heads downstairs, where a determined Violet grabs a knife from the kitchen and prepares for the confrontation. Moments later, the masked intruder arrives in the living room, and Violet stabs him, but he easily overpowers her, and throws her across the room. It is at this point that he removes his mask, and Violet is shocked to see that it's the same guy from the electric company this morning. But before he can finish Violet off, a remote-controlled toy car with a gun sent by Toby suddenly arrives. Violet grabs it and shoots the intruder to death, finally ending the worst night of her life. The mother and son then share a moment of relief and tearfully hug each other. The scene then cuts to some time later when Henry is recovering in the hospital. The news reveals that the mayor's office is involved in an embezzlement scheme and the restaurant chaos. Soon after, Violet visits him, and he thanks her for saving his life. Jen, who is also admitted to the same hospital, teases them before leaving, and the movie comes to an end as Henry and Violet plan to go on a second date. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.